It is time. Welcome to today's webinar on business number registration and why it is so important, brought to you by CCW Digital and Hiya. I'm Brian Cantor, Principal Analyst for CCW, your host for today's discussion. We're in a world with so many engagement touch points and so much competition across so many different industries. With that reality, we have two takeaways. One, we have this huge premium on being able to cut through the noise and connect with customers in a meaningful human way, such as via engaging phone calls. Two, this heightens the importance of brand reputation. Being an organization that not only sells a great product, but truly understands, values, and wants to empower its customers is so crucial for standing out and connecting in today's hyper-competitive world. But unfortunately, we are facing the same challenge that has consequences for both of these areas, and that's the impact of spam calls. Spam adds to the noise out there, thus making customers so fundamentally distrusting of the calls they are receiving. It also serves to jeopardize the reputation of brands, making it harder than ever to trust that caller as a credible company, let alone one that can reliably support its customers. Now, that's the bad news. The good news is that there are steps you can take to address both challenges. Business number registration is one of the most fundamental things you can do. And today we're going to explore what it is, why it matters, and how to do it with real life examples of what it looks like and why it's so empowering for your business. From there, we're going to talk about best practices for not only making the most of business number registration, but making the most of this newfound opportunity to connect with your customers and truly build trust and loyalty. As a reminder, today's webinar is being recorded, and you can ask questions at any time using the console on your screen. Without further ado, I want to pass it over to Michelle to kick us off and also introduce our co-presenter, Jonathan.
Hi, everyone. Really excited to be here today. I'm Michelle Wallace. I'm joined by my colleague, Jonathan Nelson. The two
Hello,
of us
everyone.
both, thanks everyone for joining us. And the two of us both work on a couple of different products at Hiya, including our new solution that's free for business number registration. And so today we're going to be talking about business number registration, what it does for you, and how it fits into a holistic approach to your call reputation. So before we dive into all of that, it's helpful to kind of set a little context on who we are here at Hiya and why we have a perspective on this. So here at Hiya, Jonathan, if you want to hop to the next slide, we are focused on helping to secure the voice call and improve trust in restoring trust in the voice call. We want to help make voice continue to be a trusted and reliable means for businesses to connect with consumers. And so we, to support this, we work with a variety of partners and have a variety of solutions that we offer. So this includes things like we work with carriers and device manufacturers across the globe to help them secure the voice call for their customers and protect their customers, consumers, from unwanted spam and fraud calls. And we're also working with businesses such as yourselves on helping to connect with customers in this environment where there is a lot of unwanted spam and fraud calls. And so a lot of this really boils down to, we really want to help cut down the noise, cut through the noise of unwanted spam calls and help wanted calls succeed and connect. And let's face it, we all know that there are unique challenges on the voice call today, challenges that you may be facing. And so, let's hop into, Jonathan, if you want to talk a little bit more about those challenges and kind of what we're looking at in terms of the landscape today in voice.
All right, certainly. And I think that's probably the really important message as we carry through in this presentation today. This is all about reconnecting the call. Like everything that we hope to discuss today is all about what are the challenges that are stopping the call from being a successful communication method for calling companies, possibly like yourselves, and what can you do and what's being done to try and make that better. And to talk about this, we really have to first take a quick overview of both what's the state of the world today and what are we going to walk through sort of in our presentation. And it all centers around the fact that the whole calling ecosystem has changed at this point. You go back 20, 30 years ago, the ubiquitous house phone rings, everyone answers it. It's usually somebody you know, it's usually somebody you're expecting. Um, Not that, of course, phone spam didn't exist back then. In fact, it's somewhat of a standard joke, right? The call during dinner time. You have to get up from dinner, go answer the phone, um, and then it's a telemarketer, some undesired call. But that world has changed. That quaint, casual joke of the spam call now is ubiquitous. It's constant. Spam and fraud has really completely overwhelmed the phone call, and no one's getting up from the dinner table to answer that phone anymore. They're not even bothering to take it out of their pocket. Um, with all of this noise, we're going to talk more about how this has led to consumers really just sort of giving up on the phone call. They're not really answering it. And this isn't a state that anyone wants to be in. So we're going to talk a little bit about the various solutions that have come out to try and revive the phone call, try and get people answering the phone again and actually engaging by trying to clear out some of that noise so that when your phone does ring, this is something that's relevant to you. When you look at your phone, you'll see information that's meaningful to you and gives you an opportunity to know how to proceed. It's all about creating engaging experiences, in ways perhaps the voice is just one of several channels that a caller might be using to engage and to build these sorts of relationships. And a big part of this has been spam labeling, so identifying spam calls, labeling those so consumers can know which of the calls are wanted. And there's no doubt there are folks in our audience here who are quite concerned about that because you don't know, does that include me? Am I being labeled? What is it? Why would I be labeled? How can I stop that from happening? So we are going to talk a bit about that, about what is somewhat leading to those labels and what you as a caller can make sure you're one of those ones that's making it through. Because we do have to acknowledge that in this new world where these recipients have a say into what phone calls they're going to answer, they have a say in who can take their time. There's a real onus to be a good calling citizen and to help your own calls connect while we're working simultaneously to flag and remove those bad calls to get them out of your way. And so that's actually where I think I'll start us off. Let's just remind ourselves, what is it like to be a call recipient out there? Call recipients are receiving a tremendous volume of phone calls. And you, as a caller, have probably experienced firsthand just how difficult it is to actually reach a customer or reach a potential prospect by phone. And that's because the overall call answer rates are just incredibly low now, possibly the lowest that they've ever been. And your call really is just one in a sea of calls, all trying to vie for their attention, which the customer has given up trying to differentiate between these and just doesn't even attempt to connect at all. So for you as a legitimate caller, there's very little that you can then do to try and actually stand out from this noise. Since the customer has no way of telling these calls apart, short of actually answering the phone every single time, which is something we just know they're not going to do.
Yeah, and I think it's crucial here, to think about how noisy of an environment this is for the customer. And Jonathan mentioned it here. There are a lot of demands and other things, other callers vying for your customer's attention, this person you're trying to reach on the other end of the line. And so when we think about call reputation and spam labeling and these things that may be a concern for you, very understandably so, it's really helpful to think about the big picture, the whole call, the customer at the end of the line. And so that's what we're going to kind of break down for you today. Like, what are the things you should be paying attention to that can help you cut through that noise, differentiate yourself better, and naturally have that result of supporting a healthy call reputation and better outcomes for you.
Yeah, exactly. And there is one perspective we want to sort of tackle somewhat head on. Oh, sorry, Michelle, we'll give a quick recap on numbers.
Yeah. So we all know this is a challenge for consumers. I think we all know it because we are consumers ourselves as well. Spam and fraud is a really ubiquitous problem. Hiya does have some data on what this, problem actually looks like. We have kind of a unique perspective and unique insights because across the Hiya network, our global network of partnerships, there are billions and billions of phone calls happening every month and millions of user spam reports being submitted. And so we actually publish reports using a representative sample of Hiya network data on a regular basis, looking at this problem. And so just wanted to show some interesting insights from a couple of different recent reports, actually including a little bit of a preview of an upcoming report that you should stay tuned for. What does our data show? In the first half of 2024, there were over 19 billion unwanted phone calls received globally across the Hiya network. And that means for consumers, how this breaks down, out of calls that they receive from callers who are outside their address book, 22% of those were nuisance calls. So those are calls that are bothersome, unwanted for some reason. They aren't necessarily illegal calls. And then 7%, a full 7% were fraud. So combined, that means that almost 30% of calls that consumers receive from an unknown caller are unwanted for some reason. So that's a huge amount of unwanted phone calls. And the impact is very, very real. So in terms of real money. Hiya has surveyed consumers about whether they've been victims of scams via voice call, how much they've lost, and also how much time they spend screening unwanted phone calls. And so just looking, for example, at these three countries, we see a huge impact of both the direct and indirect losses of spam and fraud calls. So that includes, money directly lost to fraud. And also, this actually ends up being higher losses, probably because it's so ubiquitous, the cost of wasted productivity. So this is costing consumers billions, and this is a major problem for them. Carriers know this is a problem, and it's really important for them to restore that trust and ensure that the voice call can be, a reliable means of communication for their customers, consumers, to be able to rely on using the voice call.
And it's worth noting you're seeing a couple market examples here, but these numbers that we're talking about, these are not limited to just particular countries. I mean, Hiya has strong protection services in over 40 countries around the world, and no country is exempt from the spam problem. It often does feel like it's one that's perhaps targeting, the United States and Europe especially hard, but truth is, and you'll see in the report that's coming up soon that you should certainly plan on checking out, it's actually markets in South America that get hit some of the hardest. This is absolutely a global problem, and so what we're trying to do, as we're going to go through today, is come up with an equally global solution.
Great. Yeah. And so the good news here is, despite this problem and, in fact, because of the problem, there are industry efforts that are beginning to help. So that's the good news here.
Yes, exactly. It's, this is what I was going to say. I know that there are probably folks listening to us right now who view the spam label as the problem. This wasn't affecting your calls before, and now you feel like your calls are getting this label, and this is the problem that has been created. But we do want to stress, actually, there's been a lot of effort within the industry to try and help and support legitimate calling companies, whether you're doing customer support or sales or charitable donations, anything that you're doing where you're calling with good intention and with good practices that we'll talk about soon. the efforts within the industry have been to try and help support you. So we can see this across the board. So a lot of OEMs, pretty much all OEM handset manufacturers at this point, are delivering at least some form of integrated spam protection. Even Apple, who's notoriously quite closed in their systems, actually does allow for third-party software developers to offer spam shielding, which Apple will then integrate into their iOS dialer. There are a tremendous market of over-the-top applications. Hiya, in addition to working with OEMs, Hiya also manages our own apps. But increasingly and most significantly is we're seeing a lot of effort coming out of the core telephony industry itself, out of the carriers, and out of the federal regulatory bodies that manage them. There's in an increasing number of markets, you're getting carriers themselves adding real-time spam detection on their network. Gives them an opportunity to actually intervene in cases where a call has a high risk of being fraud. They may intervene and in some markets even stop the call. Or if they feel that the call is aggressively nuisance, it is being a distraction for their subscribers in paying attention to your calls, the wanted, well-planned calls, that it can be labeled and give the recipient some guidance in hopes that, again, that they will resume answering those other calls. They'll resume answering the calls that you are likely trying to make. So we have a few examples, I think, here. We can take a quick look of what this actually looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, these are a couple of examples of, what you could see, for instance, on a consumer's device that would be considered a spam label. Now, it's really helpful to kind of take a step back and think about and understand kind of the foundations of spam labeling, why it happens, and this can be really helpful in understanding what some best practices are to support a healthy call reputation, to help proactively try to reduce the risk of being labeled as spam, but also to improve overall call success. And so it's helpful to understand these key fundamentals. So first and foremost, what actually is a spam label? It might seem really obvious, but a spam label is essentially a label that's applied directly, it's applied and shown on the user's handset when they receive an incoming call that essentially is giving them more context about the incoming call, more than just the phone number alone would tell them. So, this could, for instance, say this call is suspected to be spam, like you see here on the left. Maybe you want to treat it with higher caution. But it could also show you something like in the middle example here, this is a call that other users have reported, for instance, as a survey. And so this label can help the consumer understand more about the call that they're about to receive and make the right choice and how they want to engage with it. And now Jonathan kind of nodded to this, like how spam labels could make their way onto the device, like kind of what are the different routes. So this can come from carriers implementing spam protections directly into their network. It can come from the device manufacturers themselves. And also it may come from an app installed on a user's device. And so these labels could look differently. You could see different types of or different labels here. These are a couple of examples, but it can look differently depending on how it's making its way onto the device and where in the world you may be, for instance. But this is the sort of thing that you are looking for here, right? These are labels. And lastly, how do calls actually get labeled, or why do calls get labeled? So as we talked about this challenge that consumers are facing, carriers are acutely aware of this challenge and really want to improve that experience for their customers, ensure that customers can trust voice calls and know that they're going to be protected from spam and fraud calls. And so carriers are using technology to detect and label these unwanted spam and fraud calls. And this technology is called spam analytics. And spam analytics systems, essentially, they're using a variety of different factors to help determine how risky a call might be for a consumer receiving it. And so they're going to look at a lot more than simply the phone number that's being used to make the call, and actually the whole context of that call. And that's why it's so crucial to be thinking about that whole call, the whole user experience, that consumer on the other end of the line, and really focus on crafting a great, engaging experience. Now, when it comes down to what you can do there, like what types of best practices you can follow, it can be helpful to think about other digital channels that we're familiar with. So let's take, for example, the email channel. We're all familiar with the email spam folder, and this is something that has emerged to essentially give users more control and choice in how they engage with emails, quite similarly to spam labels on the voice call. And now, if you are a brand who's sending an email to customers or prospects, you probably don't want to end up in the email spam folder. And so there's a couple of things you might do to help support that goal. And so that may start with something like registering your sending domain. You want to go to the next slide. If you register your sending domain as a brand, that's helping you establish that trust in you as as a business you're recognized as legitimate. Now, you don't stop there though. It's also important to be thinking about customer-friendly email practices. So things like optimizing emails for high engagement, sending to recipients who have opted into email marketing, all of these things are important. And these things work together to help you support your email deliverability, right? And so these same principles can be applied to the voice call.
I think it's important to also note that these are things that we would imagine you're probably doing on an ongoing basis. Maintaining good health in your email campaigns, in your calling campaigns, in your business, or in your life. These are things that need sort of continuous sort of investment and engagement. So a lot of what we should be talking about here is about not just checking a few check boxes, but like how can you make sure that you stay sort of healthy, just as you probably would be doing for campaigns like these.
Absolutely. Yeah, and great point. And so when we think about applying this to the voice call, these principles transfer over really well. And so when it comes to supporting a healthy reputation and what are the concrete, tangible things that you can do, it really kind of goes into two buckets. There are two things that can play a big role in your outcomes. And the first is a carrier's knowledge about you. So that's akin to that emailing, registering your sending domain on the email channel, but also how a consumer experiences your call. After all, it's the consumer who decides ultimately if that call is wanted for them. And so how a consumer experiences that call, whether it's a positive experience for them, is crucial to your reputation. And so both of these things together play a role. And
So good.
yeah,
I was just gonna say real quick, I think especially as you were saying, just to double down, it's the perception of these recipients is what's playing a role. It kind of goes back to what we were talking about before. We've really moved on from this world where these recipients, really have no control over when their phone rings, who can make it ring, at any point in time, whether or not they wanted the call. There's really no recourse to. There's actually not this aspect of consumer perception. Again, not at all dissimilar from what you see within the email world. So the recipients have ways to express desirability or concern or report calls, and that's the reflection of their perception becomes quite important. I think, especially as we start to talk a bit about exactly how these labels come to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's helpful to kind of break this down into a couple of different examples. So this isn't an exhaustive list. It helps illustrate what are some of the things within each of these sort of two core pillars that can impact outcomes in terms of spam labeling. So if we think about that first bucket of what does a carrier know about you, some things that could potentially result in a spam label could be, say, for instance, a carrier doesn't know if you are a legitimate caller, or the phone number that you're using doesn't have much of a calling history. So essentially, there's not a ton of information for the carrier to go off of in terms of understanding if you are a trustworthy caller and if you've established yourself as being trustworthy.
Yeah. And it's, note that that's the sort of thing that the bad actors would tend to try and avoid. They
Mhm.
they they don't want to build up history of their illegitimate practices. They don't want the carrier to know who they are. So, actions that legitimate companies can take, this is one way that you actually help distance yourself from those.
Yeah, absolutely. And, proactively, we'll talk about this and proactively, identifying yourself to those carriers can go a huge way. And so then in that second kind of key pillar, that consumer perception, which is so crucial, just some things that could result, for instance, or influence your spam labeling outcomes could be, say, for instance, the customer is being contacted more frequently than they want. So maybe they've filled out a form on your website, they have opted in to communications, yet the frequency or time at which they're being contacted isn't what they prefer. There's a mismatch there, and that can create a negative consumer experience. Another thing, for instance, is simply if the caller is unprofessional. And so good agent training can go a really, really long way here, and just ensuring that agents are, identifying themselves at the top of the call, articulating the call's value, and being professional every step of the way. And also something as simple as like maybe an underlying technical setting, like a dialer setting, could actually have an impact on this as well. So say, for instance, the setting in your dialer is creating a short pause when the call connects. This can actually reduce the consumer's trust in that call, because when they pick up the phone, there's like a short pause and it feels like maybe there's not someone on the other end of the line. So all of these types of things can create this friction in the consumer experience, can create a less than optimal experience for them. And when we're thinking about the spam label on the left-hand side, the label itself is not really the problem. It is an indicator. It's an indicator of maybe something going on beneath the surface. And so thinking about those things going on beneath the surface is really the most crucial thing you can do to support your call reputation, even proactively. And so there are a couple of things that you can do to get started supporting a healthy call reputation. And so this starts with something as simple as registering your business phone numbers. And so registering your business phone numbers influences that first category, a carrier's knowledge about you as a caller. And then second, key thing that you can do is follow best practices for customer-friendly phone calls. And both of these things together, first of all, are founded on simple principles. These are things that should be simple and free to get started with investing in today. And both of these things really support an overall healthy call reputation and better call outcomes.
Right.
So,
And going back
yeah.
to the email example, it's it's still just about helping to make sure that your efforts for communication, are respected by the recipient and recognized by the carrier, so that they can help you, so they can be here to help support those communications and really help them succeed. That's the main goal here, is make sure your calls are those that we're trying to get out of the spam folder, because they're relevant, they're important, they're desired.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's hop into like how to get started with business number registration. This is a free and step that you can take that really goes a long way in supporting a healthy reputation.
Yes, absolutely. And it's one of the easiest steps that a business can really take because we certainly know that it can feel really difficult. You don't necessarily know where to even begin. But just simple business registration, just simply establishing yourself as a calling party, as a company out there who's attempting to make calls to recipients um, within the industry uh, is a great first step. It is completely free, and it really addresses this first category that we need to try and target, the carrier's knowledge about you, about knowing who you are and what you're doing. So business registration may sound complex, but it's actually really just quite a simple concept. It's just establishing that you are a legitimate caller and getting that information out there to all of the various carriers who might be delivering your calls. So it's not just a matter of establishing that with your originating provider, but getting the terminating providers, the ones who are doing that check to protect their subscribers from excessive spam, making sure they know who you are, and they recognize you as legitimate. And it does involve providing information so that your information can be confirmed and your validity can be confirmed and you're right. No one is attempting to represent you falsely. Uh, Once you've done this, as a business that has registered your numbers, you basically raised your hand, said, I'd like to be verified. I'm attempting to make legitimate calls. I want you to treat me as such. I'm one of the ones that's meant to be supported through this. Help my calls connectable, removing the spam, removing the aggressive calls, and hopefully people will be answering your phone calls along with everyone else's. Um, and and so we uh, at Hiya feel quite strongly about your right to do this. Uh,
Yeah. And as a legitimate caller, it is your right to establish yourself as such in the eyes of carriers who are delivering your calls. So at Hiya, we believe that registering your business numbers is your basic right. And so don't let anyone ever confuse you in terms of thinking that this is more complicated than it needs to be or needs to cost you money. The ability to establish yourself as a legitimate caller to the carriers that are delivering your calls should be free and is your right as a legitimate caller. In addition, there's a couple of other things when you go to register your numbers that you're probably reasonably going to want to expect. So first of all, business number registration being self-service. You probably want to be able to register yourself and handle that process in self-service experience. And along those lines, transparency is important. You should be able to clearly see, confirm that you have been registered. And also, you want this to work where you're making calls. So you want to be able to register yourself across multiple carriers. And say you are making calls in the UK, it's a solution that registers you with US carriers only, for instance, isn't going to be helpful for you. You want a solution that helps register you across multiple carriers in the place that matters for you. And so Hiya has a free solution for business number registration. And we're going to walk through how to get started with this today, how to register your numbers yourself. And it's simple, self-service. And when you register with Hiya, you're automatically registered across the entire global Hiya network. So that's our global network of partnerships across more than 40 countries. So what does that mean? That means you're going to get the best coverage across carriers for your registration in more than 40 countries. So this truly is a one-stop shop for you to register your business numbers for free. We want to make this really easy for you. So our goal with today's webinar is that you walk away knowing exactly how you can register your business numbers today with this free one-stop shop. And so we're going to walk through the process for doing so today.
Yep, absolutely. So Now we enter into the live demo portion of today's presentation. So have all the demo fingers and toes crossed, but we're going to show this is so Hiya registration is our free product that Hiya has launched is, as Michelle says, available today to anyone in any country to come and begin this registration process quickly and entirely within your own control. So we're going to do that now with an actual business that we'll be using as sort of our test. So you can get started. Basically, you can just go to hiya.com and registration is one of the very first products that will pop up for you. Now, as we go through this, the registration process needs to confirm a few things. One, it needs to confirm me, that I am a legitimate person, um, and that I have the right to represent whatever business it is that I'm going to be attempting to represent. That I work for them. I'm directly involved at that company. And then two, to confirm that the company itself is then legitimate. It is an established, known company in its home country. And we're trying to do this all as seamlessly as possible. So for many, many businesses, this will hopefully go stream as smoothly as it's hopefully about to go for me doing this right now. So to start with, I'm going to create a free account. Begins with me. My test business here is a little company called Woofy LLC, a great demo company. Put in our website, which is going to use to confirm the company exists. And it's also going to use that to confirm that I work for them by checking against the email address that we'll be providing. So I'll provide myself. And you'll be creating an account. So you just like you would on any other web service, create myself a password, agree to the terms and service for how to use this information, and then create. So I'm going to now, in a separate window, bear with me, go check my mail. Hopefully, very soon I will have a email confirmation. Basically what it's doing is making sure that I actually exist. That email has arrived. Let me copy the resulting link, or you could just click from the email. So now I get to get in. Perfect. And so now that it knows me, now it wants to know a little bit more about myself and about my business. So put myself in here. Woofy is in retail space, small business. Now you'll notice here it's asking for Dunn's number. So Dunn's is run by Dun and Bradstreet. It is a global business verification system. In many countries, when a business is incorporated, it is issued a Dunn's number automatically as a global identifier. There are some markets, the United States and Canada in particular, a Dunn's number is not issued automatically. It is available for free to you. So if you are in those markets, you will need a Dunn's number. You will need a record on Dunn's because it's part of the verification process that this company is legitimate and has been verified. You don't have to know your number. And again, outside of the United States, Canada, odds are you already have one, even if you don't know it. So you can always come in here and try. If it doesn't work, we have links to help to make sure you can check if you have one and get one if you don't. So my company is in the United States. Bear with me as I grab my mailing address. Type this all over again. And the last thing I have to just confirm, so for all we've done so far is give some basic information about the business, give us the mailing address, and then we do ask to confirm who are you here to register. So right now, Hiya registration is for businesses to register themselves about the phone numbers that they are using to create calls. We don't, if you are a company that does not make calls, but might be looking to register on behalf of other companies, though that's a separate process. So I'll be saying I'm managing numbers for Woofy for myself. Continue. Now what's happened here is we've done a quick check to make sure the Woofy business entity exists. So even though I didn't have to go look up my DUNS number, we were able to find one. All this information seems to match. Everything looks great. So I can say, yes, this is me. And now there's just a final check, few last details that happen in the background to confirm the legitimacy of this call so that when carriers receive this information from Hiya, they know that this is trustworthy and that they can use this to help support their spam protection. I can see in my personal email over here that I have, in fact, been approved already. So I'm already done. And so at this point, I will just simply clear this out. We'll go to business.hiya.com. And here we are. So that's it. That's the entire registration process done. At this point, I go to business.hiya.com, sign in with that username and password at any point. And the whole goal of Hiya registration is that unlike other solutions, this is something permanent for me. So as a calling enterprise, you can come in, you can sign in, you can always update, maintain, know the status of your business, make sure all your numbers are present, consistently maintain that. A lot of other solutions are, if you've ever experienced it before, it's sort of a one and done. Hey, here are my numbers. And perhaps you never hear from them again. You have no way to come back and update it. So let's actually do a few here. So I'm going to go into registered numbers. Supports quite a large variety. You can upload a full CSV list of your numbers. Hiya does recommend just registering all numbers that you're using. There's really no downside to it. In case you are shifting phone numbers, anytime you add or remove, you can add more. I'm going to just add manually for the sake here. And again, I'm going to pop out. I have some in a little list here to use. Just grab a few phone numbers to get us started. Again, there's no real limit. There's no limit to how many times I can do this, but I'm just going to do this right now. Now, it supports a convenient way to just give it a job name. So I might say these are my call center for Wyoming, and we'll get those submitted.
And that job name is a helpful way for you to kind of organize and understand within this self-service console the numbers that you have uploaded for registration. So it is helpful to know the job name is an internal reference. It does not impact things like the caller identity, for instance, displayed on your calls. This is an internal sort of thing for you to use within the self-service console to organize and better find your numbers.
Right. Yes. Now what's happening here, so these phone numbers are now getting through some basic verification, making sure that there's reason to believe these are genuine phone numbers and are genuinely owned by Woofy, who's attempting to register them. This process can take a few minutes to a few hours, depending on how many phone numbers you've done, how active is the system. But it will continuously update me with these. They will change to registered once it's all complete. I can come back in here and double check that. I'll also be able to sort of, as I said, manage, you could update, remove numbers, add more. So it's really a continuous console experience for you. You will always know the status. You can see if there's been any errors, and you can maintain sort of the health of that of your business record, within the telephony industry. Anything else, Michelle, we should add?
Yeah, when it says, when you check the status and it says registered, once these numbers have completed that registration process, yeah, this is great. These are the different statuses that you could see. And when it says registered, that means that it's registered across the entire Hiya network. As we talked about previously, this is, the network of partnerships across more than 40 countries. So, that simply means you're registered, across the board here.
So we welcome everyone to come to Hiya.com, start this process for your own business, get registered. This is your free right to do as a calling company. You have the right to declare yourselves and make sure that your calls are properly being supported. But if we get back to it, this is not the only thing that we do recommend. In addition to registration, we do also strongly recommend taking efforts to make sure you're creating customer-friendly and healthy calls. So feel free to said hiya.com/get started. It'll help you get through both of these processes. Is that correct, Michelle?
Yeah, so if you go to hiya.com/get started, you can get into the business number registration right away. You can click to register your numbers. And we also have a guide, which we have a link to on the next slide, I believe, that talks about customer-friendly practices. And so in that bottom right, highly recommend checking out that free guide that goes into some best practices for customer-friendly calling.
Right, because in addition to registration, it's still important to note it is critical that you make sure you have a high quality call experience for recipients, that your calls are generally expected or generally wanted, connect well, respectful, and create a healthy call environment. That's really what can help differentiate you from the spammers. And as we say, we have a great guide on how to do this. Hiya is also currently working on a solution to further help businesses who, after registration, might still be struggling with a poor reputation, poor call engagement, low pickup rates, are often getting spam reports or being blocked. We are right now collecting information. We'd love to speak with companies who might be interested in a product like that. You could tell us a little bit more about what is your calling experience like, and how do you try to manage your calling practices today? Where might additional information or support help you to make sure you're really getting the best possible value out of your call experience? So please highly encourage if you'd like to participate and contribute towards that. You can reach out to us at input@hiya.com. We would love to hear from you and understand your use case specifically. All right. I think with that we're close to a wrap up. Anything else, Michelle, that we should cover?
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining us today. I just, want to wrap quickly and talk about, there's one thing that we hope you can take away from today's call. It's simply that, supporting a healthy call reputation is something that is based on simple principles, and it should be simple and free for you to get started today. So two really great places for you to start. Like we said, register your business numbers. Go to hiya.com/get-started, and you can get going with that today. Exactly what Jonathan showed. You can all register your business numbers today, right after this call, or even right now if you want. And then in addition, those, calling practices, building, following best practices for helping to create a positive experience for the consumers on the other end of that call. And so highly recommend checking out that guide. Maybe we can pop to the previous slide real quick. Yeah, so on that bottom right link, you can go there, and it kind of, goes back to that discussion we had of those things that could, some examples of what could impact that customer's experience. So here are a couple of kind of key takeaways, and this guide is going to go into more detail, break down some additional helpful practices. And so it is a great place to get started. So thanks everyone again for joining us today. And we'd love, you to get started today registering your business numbers for free.
Well, I want to thank Michelle and Jonathan for phenomenal insights here. And because those insights were so strong, we unsurprisingly have a lot of questions, a lot of engagement, a lot of people who really want to dive into the nuances of what's shaping caller reputations, what's making brands either capable or incapable of connecting right now. And, I can go on a 5-minute speech about why everything they said is so valuable and why the landscape is changing and why we need to take every measure possible to build human connections. Or I could get to the questions. And I know we have limited time left, but I definitely want to prioritize what we can. So, first of all, in this, either Michelle or Jonathan, whoever's comfortable with this one, it's a pretty simple one, but it asks, does registering business number stop all spam labeling for our company or organization?
Sure, I can probably take that one first, and Michelle, you can add any color. And the truth of it is no. There's no guarantee that registration is going to stop it, and it kind of goes back to what we're sort of looking at when we're talking about here. There are really two key things that you need to do if you want to support healthy call reputation. Registration is a critical one because it establishes you as a legitimate company, lets the carriers know who you are, and they are going to be less likely to flag you as some stranger suddenly making calls as a result of that. But your calls still have to have a level of desirability for those recipients. If the recipients are giving a strong message that these are unwanted calls to them, they're a nuisance, they're a distraction, they were not requested, then it is still possible to be labeled as spam. And that is where our best practices guide and some of the new projects that we're thinking about doing that you can contact us to be involved in are meant to help further from there.
Yeah, it's great. Registration is a great place to get started, and it's free and available for you to get started with today. What it does is it's going to help reduce that risk of spam labeling, but consumer reactions will always play a role. And it's important to note that this isn't just with Hiya registration. This is registration, registration itself. There is no universal place or way to stop all spam labeling because that consumer experience does always have an impact. So we definitely encourage you all to get started to register your business numbers, and it does help support your reputation. It is a place to start, and it's also crucial that you follow those customer-friendly calling practices as well.
Yeah, and I love that duality because the truth is call registration is not a shortcut to keep bothering your customers. Instead, it's a way to ensure or give you a stronger probability of meaningful calls, valuable calls, customer-friendly calls actually getting through and actually lifting your reputation. And so you want to take that step, but you don't want to ignore the duality. You don't want to ignore thinking about what your customer's looking for. And you don't want to ignore what it takes to be a brand that they want to hear from, not one that they cringe every time they see you pop up. So tremendous advice there. Now, we have a similar question here, which concerns that idea of actually popping up on the phone. So that is, does registering my business number change the caller identity displayed on their calls?
This is a great question, and really, really great to clarify that, when we think about those pillars, the carrier knowledge about you and consumer perception of your call, registering your numbers helps with that first one. And so registering your business numbers establishes you as a legitimate caller to carriers that deliver your calls. It does not impact the caller name that's displayed on your outbound calls. And so if you are, looking to, to impact that caller name, or interested in branded caller ID, you certainly can, go to our website and learn more about solutions for branded caller ID. However, with business number registration, it really is going to impact that carrier's knowledge about you, and it is helpful to distinguish this isn't going to change the caller name displayed on your outbound calls.
And we have time for two more questions. So one of these is, this person says that they've registered with free caller registry. Do they also need to register with Hiya following the steps you both provided here?
Yeah, I can probably jump on that one. So for those who might not know, so Free Caller Registry, FCR, it's in the United States today. It was an early sort of registration program. So if you are in the United States and you have registered with Free Caller Registry, it does lead to outreach to carriers as well. But there are several major drawbacks with it. One is that Free Caller Registry, you would have noticed, is a one-time thing. It was a one-time submission of your phone numbers. There is no real path for you to maintain that list, and that information does age Hiya cannot speak on behalf of all companies who use the free call registry data, but they will age it off. And so you would have to continually reiterate. And you also, if you've done this before, know that you're quite blind to it. There's very little response to you as to whether or not any of it worked. So even if you've gone through with free caller registry, we strongly recommend coming and creating a Hiya registration account. It does have the same outreach as free caller registry does, in addition to being fully global, not just the United States, but is also persistent and gives you that feedback.
Yeah, it's a great distinction. And really Hiya registration within the US is helping to expand the functionality of free caller registry. So you aren't with free caller registry going to get that self-service console that Jonathan showed us today. And so we do encourage you all to, if you're in the US and you've registered with free caller registry, to also register with Hiya registration. It's certainly not going to harm anything. And it's going to get you the things that free caller registry does in terms of your registration. And it also expands that functionality, gives you that self-service console.
Yeah, and that was perfect setup for the final question, Jonathan, by talking about the longevity and the distinction there, because I'm actually going to do a bit of a cheat code here and merge two pretty similar questions. But one, first of all, is asking just for clarification on whether registration does expire and if they will need to register multiple times. But on the other end of the spectrum, I see a question here saying, if my number's already labeled as spam, is that number permanently bad? And is it worth even trying to register that moving forward? So kind of merged a few questions together, but hoping you could provide some illumination here.
Yeah, sure, certainly. So I guess to answer the first one, the permanence of registration. So once you have registered, like through with Hiya, through our system, we're going to see that we can see you engaging with our console. We can know if you're still active and still maintaining the numbers or not. Because again, there's more than one company out there. There's many carriers out there who might be using this information, and they will have different policies on aging. But with something like Hiya registration, the fact that it's a persistent account, that's something you don't have to worry about, like you might from a one-off list submission, because they will inevitably age out. No information is just going to last forever. And in terms of reputation is not going to last forever either. One thing we like to stress is that this being labeled spam is not some blacklist. It is not a permanent characteristic of your phone. All the analytics services and all the carrier services are trying to keep an accurate spam detection as possible. So that reputation can change at any moment. And a great way to cause such a change is to register. If you have not registered and you are being labeled, declaring yourself will immediately influence the opinion that these reputation analytics systems are doing now that they know who you are. And there's a great chance that could clear your reputation. And if it doesn't, it'll hopefully help guide you in the right direction to what you can do. But there's always things that you can do. We do want to say the last thing that we recommend doing is throwing the number away and starting over, because that's what the scammers do. They constantly change numbers to hide. Don't act like a scammer. Establish yourself, build your own genuine reputation. And that's the best way to get a good, persistent, clean status.
Excellent advice there. Again, thanks so much to Michelle and Jonathan. And what it all comes down to is, yes, you're out there, you're a business, you want to make calls, you want to be proactive, you want to make sales, you want to interact with customers. There's no hiding that. You have an incentive as an organization out there to want to connect with your customers. But the truth is, when you offer value, when you're a brand that they can rely on, when you're a brand that understands its customers, they also want to hear from you as well. And so don't let the noisy environment, don't let a spam-rich environment, don't let a lack of trust get in the way of you delivering the kind of call they want to receive, being the brand they want to work with, but instead take the actions here. Focus on that business number registration, ensure you legitimize yourself and ensure you move in the right direction, and then back that up by being customer centric, by putting yourself in your customer's shoes and ensuring that each interaction is as valuable as possible. When you have that duality, when you work with an organization like Hiya to really get a sense of where you are and where you need to be, that's when you are able to build human connections. That's when you're not a company trying to be in a sea of thousands of companies. That's when you're a company who gets its customers, delivers value for its customers, and can be trusted. That's when you stand out. That's when you're human. that's when you're successful. So again, thanks to our speakers, thanks to Hiya, and of course, thanks to all of you for your participation, your engagement, and the frankly absurdly long list of questions. We couldn't get to all of them, but I know our speakers will be thrilled to follow up over email. Again, thanks so much. And for CCW Digital, this has been Brian Cantor. We'll see you next time.